Jim, we're going to take everything together, okay? There isn't anything else but the budget on here, right? We're going to take it all together. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Councilwoman Joanne Ryan. This is the Committee on Finance regular meeting. It is Tuesday, May 24th, 2022. It is 5:33. Calling the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you kindly read the roll?
Chairwoman Joanne Ryan.
Present.
Vice Chairwoman Carmen Castillo is absent. Councilman Nicolas Narducci is absent. Councilwoman Helen DeAntoni.
Present.
Councilman James Taylor.
Here.
We have 3 present and 2 absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Let the record reflect that we are joined this evening by Councilman Correa and Councilman Oscar Vargas. We also have our solicitor, Ken Cheverini, has joined us via Zoom. And I also believe that Elaine Richards, is Elaine Richards signed in? Is she there? Okay. Elaine Richards, our Deputy Commissioner, Department of Public Safety, is also joining us via Zoom. Anyone else I should recognize? Madam Clerk, we good?
We are good.
Okay, awesome. With that said, let's swear everyone in, I think at one time, who will be making testimony this evening. Could you help us with that, Madam Clerk?
Can you please raise your right hand?
That includes our Zoom friends.
Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and title for the record, please.
Krista Lindberg, Deputy Finance Director and Budget Officer. Sarah Silveria, Finance Director.
Hugh Clements, Chief of Providence Police.
Steve Parry, Commissioner of Public Safety.
Tom Verdi, Deputy Chief. Captain Nolan, Assistant Chief for Operations, Fire Department.
Derek Silver, Assistant Chief for Administration, Fire Department.
Zach Wright, Kennedy, Deputy Assistant Chief of EMS.
She's not going to be testifying, Madam Chair.
She may be called to answer a question. Can we have Elaine Richards, if you didn't swear yourself in, please do so.
Elaine Richards, Deputy Commissioner of Public Safety.
Did she swear? Did she walk through that? I don't believe she did, Madam Clerk. Was she sworn in?
Yes.
Okay. All right, excellent. Let's start out by asking the the administration's finance team to lead us through. We want to get some exhibits into the record first before they walk us through the exhibits. So if I may entertain a motion to enter the Commissioner of Public Safety 101-301 financial 3-box report, and it's attached org chart. Can we call that Exhibit 12? May I have that motion?
So moved.
Motion made by
Second.
Councilman Taylor, seconded by Councilman Anthony. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Then we'll call on the Fire Department 101-303 financial summary, 3-box report, and accompanying org chart, Exhibit 13. May I have that motion? Motion made by Councilman Taylor, seconded by Councilman Anthony. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. And then the last one that we have this evening is the Police Department 101-302. The financial analysis, 3-box report, and the accompanying org chart. Let's call that Exhibit 14.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Taylor, seconded by Councilman Anthony. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay, so we have the 3 exhibits. Director Silveria, would you like to take us through these reports, please? And then I think let's go through all three of them at once. And then we'll have the commissioner come up with the police department chief and the fire department, and we'll just go through, or we'll allow them to make a presentation. So you want to start off?
I'm sure. Starting off with the Commissioner's Office, 101-301. Revenues budgeted at $61,200 for fiscal year '23. This is an increase of 100% over the '22 budget of zero. And this increase is relating to the bin station that has been able to reopen. It was closed during 2020 and resumed operations in November of 2021. Moving on to expenditures, salaries for fiscal '23 are $800,783, an increase of $36,142 over the fiscal '22 budget. And this increase is due to a 2.5 increase for 1033 per the proposed contract and extended to non-union. Employee benefits in fiscal '23 are $470,018, an increase of $16,397. Moving on to services. Services for fiscal '23 are $695,322. This represents a decrease of $66,640. This decrease is primarily due to software costs incurred in '22 that are no longer necessary in '23. And supplies are budgeted consistent with '22 at $253,067, and there's no capital budget in that department.
Okay.
Moving on to police, 101-302. Revenue in fiscal '23 is budgeted at $8,779,400, an increase of $49,800. And this change is due to projected increases in red light camera revenue and miscellaneous revenues, and some slight decreases in the false alarm and officer court fee revenues. Moving on to expenditures and salaries, in fiscal '23 are budgeted at $50,302,765. This is an increase of $3,359,704 over the '22 budget, and the increase is due to a 3.75% increase to all sworn personnel, funding for police academy recruits, and a 2.5% increase for 1033 and non-union personnel. Total benefits in fiscal '23 is budgeted at $39,967,115, an increase of $1,060,643. Total services for the fire department have been budgeted at for the police department have been budgeted at $7,879,871. This is an increase of $1.6 million over the '22 budget, and the increase is primarily due to continued implementation of body-worn camera program, funding for the community diversion clinician services, increased towing fees, and police academy costs.
Okay.
Moving on to supplies. Supplies in '23 have been budgeted at $2,135,413. This is an increase of $314,221 from the '21 budget. And this is due to increases in uniform and wearing apparel related to the police academy. And there's no capital budget in this department. Moving along to the fire department, revenue in fiscal '23 is budgeted at $923,272. This is an increase $33,772. And this is due to projected increases from plan review fees. Total salaries in the fire department are $43,411,390, an increase of $2,866,473, and the increase is primarily due to 4% increase for sworn employees, along with personnel changes included in the recently negotiated contract. Additionally, the salary for the deputy assistant fire chief positions have been increased to a maximum amount of $119,322 at a total cost of $21,850. A 2.5 increase has also been budgeted for all 1033 and non-union. Total benefits in fiscal '23 are $41,711,854, representing an increase of $1,755,426. Services in the fire department are $878,897. This is an increase of $479,587, and primarily due to recruitment costs associated with the fire academy and an increased training costs. Supplies for fiscal 23 are budgeted at $1,756,570, an increase of $256,025 over the 22 budget. And the increase is primarily due to replacement of turnout gear, costs associated with phase 1 of the hazardous foam mitigation plan, and funding a grant match for updated washers, extractors, and dryers. And there's no capital in this department.
All set?
All set.
Okay, so let's get the commissioner and the chiefs up here to talk about what's going on in their department, how their budget's going, what their needs are. And then I'm going to ask a series of budget-related financial questions, and then we'll open it up for council questions. So let's get through your presentations if we can.
You want me to open up, Madam Chair?
Please.
Okay, thank you, members of the committee. Not much has changed in my Commissioner of Public Safety budget. The internal auditor sent a couple of questions. The bin station was shut down during the emergency.
So, yes, for the benefit of everybody's, the auditor, as she typically does each year, sends you some questions relative to her analysis of the budget. So you've had the benefit of looking at her questions. So I would expect that you would answer all of the questions that she sent in your presentations.
Sure. So, and I appreciate the questions, so
Great.
we could be prepared in answering them. So the revenue on the bin got shut down for nearly 2 years because the state was in an emergency. Over COVID, the internal auditor asked to open the bin station when the emergency declaration was lifted. There's a statute that requires each municipality to provide a bin verification. So when that happened, we reopened, and it continues to be housed at the public safety garage on the first floor. So we have 2 employees that provide that service pursuant to the statute, and we expect the revenue as submitted. I think it was $38,000 from the bin verification. She also asked, I have one position in my office, a fiscal budget person that's been vacant since September of 19. It has been filled. It's been vacant that period of time because of not only COVID, we've had a series of interviews. We just did not find someone to fill that position, but we intend to fill it, and it is filled. It's in the process of onboarding with an internal candidate. The bin, and she also asked, the finance provided the projections from parking tickets, red light, and speed that's in the budget. We get those from the vendor that's provided that service to us as the history of what their projections are on revenue. And obviously we change when we expand camera, and particularly speed camera. We have not expanded red light camera enforcement. And what is the status of the RFP? We are currently evaluating vendors that have submitted proposals for the parking ticket function of red light is already under contract, so is speed. So we're in the process of evaluating. They were received completed on May 9th, and it's just a matter, I think there are 3, maybe 4 vendors that we're evaluating, and we'll have a recommendation and a selection that goes back before the Board of Contract and Supply.
Is that all you have to present?
That's all I have. I don't have much in my budget, and there's no significant changes as to personnel or programs.
Okay. So, Chief Clements, do you want to talk about what's going on in your budget, please?
No, thank you, Chairwoman. Appreciate appreciated. In the police department, we're happy to report that we have an academy that we had been recruiting for. We continue to recruit during this critical moment in policing, not only in this state, but around the country. With this latest academy that graduated in October of 2021, it brought our numbers to 449. We presently are at 438. I've testified before this commission.
You're presently at 438? Is that what you said?
438.
Okay.
I've testified several times in the past that we need to be in between 450 and 500. 475 is a good operational number for the model of policing that we deploy. So we're at 438. We were sure hoping that we could fill an academy of 50, but we're struggling. For the very first time, like most departments began struggling in the West and Southwest, we're struggling. We have, in the first phase of testing, we had 685 applicants. We've already finished 90% of the first round of testing for their physical agility. We're down to 152 who are in the arena to be selected, which is common. I mean, normally it's about half get washed out. So we're at 152 with another 51 to complete physical agility testing. So the closer we can get to 200 before we administer the written exam, the better off we'll be. We're looking to, by the budget is based on the training academy starting in January of 2023 and graduating in June of 23. We're sure hopeful that we get 50 of the best qualified candidates to be in seats for January of 23.
So your target is 50, is that what you just said?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Please continue.
The holiday pay increased from 2.1 million from 1.5. The actual figure should be 1.7 million, 1.76 that it increased to, and that was based on there was a duplicate calculation of the holiday pay of 263,200 for the sergeants. So that wipes off 263, and the rest is due to the increase in their salaries.
Not to make a clarification?
So is that 263 less from the 2.1? So it's only 1.9?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Please continue.
Number 3, the personnel recruitment has increased to 165,875 for this fiscal year from 48,500. Last year we were not in a recruitment phase. This year we are, so we're in the midst of the testing. So that increase is identified through the 165,875 is the psychological testing is 42,000 upcoming. The physical exams, once we select candidates, 43,875. Recruit training uniforms and gear, 70,000. In training instructor uniforms, 10,000. That calculates to 165.
Thank you. Okay.
The maintenance and servicing is increased to 1.579 in fiscal year 2023 from 524,419. Is this the cost in maintenance of new cameras? So partly yes, this was what I testified to before, and we went, I think I testified 3 times. We went back and we calculated a 5-year contract with Axon. That was one piece of it, and that was a really good proposal and contract we got with the vendor, Axon. But this also includes, additionally, there's funding contained within this line item for the license plate reader program that we're looking to embark on, and certainly if the city, if we, the police department, chooses to go down that avenue, it would go through the Board of Contracts, but we've included that in our budgeting to ensure that we have the funding if approved.
What is the cost of that?
I believe it's 277,000. The initial program that we're starting with is a pilot program with no financial requirement from the city. It's a 12-month program, 25 cameras for free with no commitment on the back end. So we'll have ample opportunity to monitor and see the success we may have. I think we'll have great success with that program in the arena of fighting crime. They will solely be used for criminal activity and nothing else.
So how do you determine where you're gonna locate those cameras?
Through our hotspot mapping, through our analyst, and through vendors from the company, through the experience they have in other municipal city jurisdictions as to the best places to place these cameras. But predominantly, they go off of our hotspot mapping and our crime data.
Are they movable or are they fixed?
They're fixed, but we can move them, similar to the red light cameras. We can bounce them around if we find a better location, we might get better activity. And we certainly want to take advantage of entries and egresses to and from the city. On the east side, west end, south side.
Thank you.
Repairs to trucks and autos has increased $484,000 in fiscal year 2023 from $134,000. This has become the ongoing discussion with the portos. So with the portos for years, for I want to say my whole career, if not maybe 20, 25 years, we've had what we call portos in the city of Providence. They refer to portos in that all of these vehicles previously had been towed by a vendor down to the port. There comes the term portos. But they're basically abandoned vehicles on city streets, city sidewalks, and property, where they become an eyesore to a community. Complaints are made. We have a dedicated officer assigned who is out and places stickers. If the vehicle is on the road, you have 2 days to move it. If the vehicle is on private property, you have 7 days to move it. We're pretty lenient on that. We go back, maybe not on the 2-day mark or the 7-day mark, and give people opportunities to move the vehicle. But then we have the legal authority by state law to tow it. And we do. We tow several vehicles. But more times than not, more than half the time, by the time our officer goes back, that vehicle is moved. What we have seen an increase in since the pandemic and in the last year and a half, 2 years is, and this is, I mean, so much changed since the pandemic, but one thing that changed was an increase in people dumping garbage on certain popular areas, remote streets, many in Valley Street, Oneyville, Harris, Aurora Street. So we have seen a huge uptick in people dumping garbage and as well as vehicles. So they'll dump boats, trailers, RVs, campers. And contained in those vehicles is a huge amount of garbage. So right up until back when Director Borg was here with DPW, they had allowed for the port tow vendor to tow those port tows to DPW. And they would dispose of those vehicles through a salvage yard if needed be. And they would, go through those vehicles and then send them to salvage. What happened more recently, quite frankly, the real estate down at DPW just filled up. And the DPW director, I'm sure rightfully so, Leo Parada's it said, no more. We just have no real estate to put any more of these large vehicles on city property. So therein lies the problem that I think we as a city need to correct somehow. So when that occurred in 2019, there was no longer a place for the vendor to tow these vehicles to. So in essence, the city, DPW, indicates we can no longer accept them. So now the vendor takes that towed vehicle right to a salvage yard. That is the direct reason for the exorbitantly high increase in both in cleaning the vehicles, salvaging the vehicles. It led to significantly higher numbers for the services provided by that vendor. Therein lies the problem. I mean, so the police department, by state law, all police departments have the authority to tow a vehicle that's abandoned on property in their municipality. And then we didn't control the contract, but then we are responsible for the payment to the vendor.
You keep saying vendor. How do they get to be a vendor? Did you do an RFP for this type of business?
They do every, I don't know if they do it every year, I don't know exactly how it's done yearly, bi-yearly, but it was bid on, it's always been bid on. It's a service that most people, most vendors, there's usually one vendor who bids on this.
Okay.
For the
You know
last
what?
several years that we bid in administration, there's only been one bidder. I don't know, I'll testify accurately, I do not know if it's been bid on every year, but the vendor who's had the award, the last award, whenever it was bid, was State Tow.
Okay, we're going to continue through your presentation to
Okay.
answer some of the financial questions, and we'll probably likely go back on that, okay? But let's
Okay.
not get hung up on that, let's continue along. And we're going to go back with some questioning. Continue, please.
Miscellaneous professional services funded at $210,000 in the last fiscal year. This is for the Providence Center Community Diversion Clinician Services provided on-scene assessment of individuals who may be experiencing behavioral health crisis. This is all as a result of the happenings in the last 2 years.
Is this the GO team, sir?
No, this is actually, the GO team is with Family Services Rhode Island. This
Okay.
is with the Providence Center.
Okay. What piece does the GO team get paid out of?
That's going back and forth presently. I don't know. There's been times with the GO team, the girl in our office, Carla Clay, she had been funded by grant programs from the police department. Presently, I'm not quite sure exactly what bucket it's coming from.
Sure. The auditor says that she can answer that.
It's
So-
it's in the grant portion of the non-general fund, the 217,000.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Okay.
Number 7, guns and ammo is increased to $161,000 this fiscal year from $122, $40,000 increase. Current year to date, you have on paid for approximately $85K and have approximately $75,000 obligated. Question is, will you need this balance for fiscal year 2022? The answer is yes. Ammo is currently on back order due to supply chain issues and the war. It's really difficult for everyone to get ammo right now, law enforcement, community members, and because of the war, there's just a significant backlog. We are in constant contact with when those deliveries will be. We obviously have great connections with some of these vendors, and we're near the top of the list. What is the increase in fiscal year 2023 for? Part B of this increase. So as we all know, that's happened in our city in some of our wards. We've had a significant uptick increase in barricaded subjects. We've had police officers shot at with assault rifles. We've had a great need to enter homes safely, enter establishments safely, where people we know contained inside are possessing firearms and are capable of causing harm, both to community members and to the police. So this increase is for 2 ballistic shields for active shooter response, 10 Colt short barreled rifles, 10 nightstick gun lights. That's the lens, the light that goes on top of the weapon itself to more clearly illuminate the target, and 10 aim-point rifle optics. That's for our rifles. Those aim-point rifle optics has a red dot that allows for fast target acquisition and is vibration and shock resistant. That explains number 7. Uniforms, number 8, in wearing apparel, increased to $1.174 million in 2023 from $934,000. The increase is due largely because of the number of bulletproof vests that were outdated at $725 each, and the Molly tack vest. We now wear the Molly tack vest in the outer garment patrol officers wear at $250 that require replacement in fiscal year 23 at a total cost of $284,938. Additionally, there is a new There is new and replacement uniforms for the SRU, our SWAT team, the Special Response Unit, at a cost of $39,829. Number 9, the last question is, why is red light camera revenue level funded? This projection is based on revenue estimates provided by the vendor who provides services for the program. So we got that data and information from the vendor.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about your department, your budget, what your concerns are before we switch over to fire?
No, we're just really excited about this upcoming recruitment and incoming academy once we get 56.
Okay. Can you just, before we move over to fire, can you tell me retirement officers, the officers that are eligible for retirement?
I don't have that number handy, but what I can tell you, this number's been consistent for a very long time. We normally lose an attrition between 12 and 20 during a non-contract year. So I think a fair estimate, we're at 438. I think year-to-date from now, it's fair to say we lose around 15. So
Okay.
we go to 423, 420 by the time that next school is in session. And that puts us in, it took us so long to catch up at 420, and then we graduate that school, we're closer to 470. Little by little, we've had opportunity to catch up.
Okay. So we're going to be at 470. Are we going to have another recruiting class next year, the next
I hope so.
budget?
Yes.
We're going to need to, because we're still playing.
In or around 470, yes.
All right, okay. Let's move to the fire budget. I was going to do everybody, then we ask questions all at once, if that's okay.
That's fine.
That's why I started by saying we'll let them get through everything. Commissioner, would you like to lead the fire department budget
Sure.
discussion?
Certainly.
Assisted by our able chief, assistant chief? Thank you.
Yes, we will. So the internal auditor posed 6 or 7 questions as well. I'm just going to run through them and then highlight a couple things. So she inquired about the FY23 budget and the academy. We do not have a budgeted academy for FY23. We do have a $309,000 for recruitment for 23, in which we plan on recruiting in FY23, and then coming back and asking to run that academy, and you'll see the cost, that the questions about what we're paying our recruits and the benefits, etc. So the answer is 310 is in there for recruitment of firefighters only. We haven't recruited in some time. She asked also a question, or someone did, about how many applicants do we have. We don't take applicants, but we have opened or left open letters of interest, so any person who wants to be a firefighter can send, and has been able to send in the past 4 years their letter of interest. There's about 1,000 of those. Some may be dated and others may have gone on to another career. So we're in the process of scrubbing that list in preparation for our recruitment process, which includes, very similar to the police department, an application period, an agility test, a background, a psych test, and all of those things, which takes us nearly 12 months to do, and hopefully we'll be back next fiscal year to run the academy in '24. Do you plan on hiring a chief? The answer is yes. When was the last time the fire captain EMS was filled? Captains are union members in this department, so there's no non-union captain. That was in August of '21. The DACs haven't, or the DAC, Chief Kenyon, has not assumed, although responsible for those duties. Those have been assigned by light duty folks that we use for that purpose, and that's why you see in this budget a captain in EMS to assist, because having light duty folks and folks that don't know how to monitor and seek ultimate reimbursement, we believe that there's an inefficiency there. Is this position non-union? The DAC, Chief Kenyon, but the DAC and EMS is a non-union position. The fire captain, as I said, are union positions. Callback, do you know the break-even point? This is always the calculation, and you don't want to overhire, so we're at 88 per platoon, so 352 at minimum manpower for our fire department. That's just sworn. We have about 30 sworn but not operational in the department as well. So my prediction, that sweet spot, so we're not spending money on FTEs, because obviously there's a up and down with either vacation use, personal days, sick time, IOD. And so trying to calculate if I staff or if we staff about the sweet spot of 88 per platoon, if we staff about 100, there'll be times in which there'll be inefficiencies because there'll be 95 on that platoon and we only require 88. But at other times, we're going to need those extra 12 to avoid a callback when, each day on average, there's 12 to 15 people out on platoon. So as we are at, right now, 382, so there's about 90, 88 firefighters on each platoon. So right now, we have structured callback. Even with everyone coming to work and not being sick, but on average, there's 12 to 15 out each day for each platoon. So I know it was a simple question that I didn't give a simple answer because there is none. We need to be, in my opinion, you'll never eliminate callback unless you are really overstaffed, and that's a waste because we'll be running 210 firefighters on a platoon and we only need 88. That sweet spot, in my opinion, is about 98 to 100 on each platoon. And right now, we're at 90. Some platoons have 88 or 89, ballpark. So we do need an academy, and that's why we've asked for recruitment dollars. And then my prediction in '24, running an academy, you're probably looking at 50 to 75 recruits to backfill the hole, because the callback's going to just continue to grow. So that was a question about the callback. Question about 5270 has increased to $199,096.26 from $74,822 in '22. Also, the difference from the training that increased from 50 in '23. This training account is for outside vendors to provide training to members and to travel here for that training. So the increase that you see in this line item is a 10% match for an FY21 AFG grant that we were awarded, and $113,000 is our obligation under the grant for the city. Does this training cause increase in callback? On occasion, some training may, depend on where and when we run it. We try to run it at non-peak season, so summers, obviously, high vacation use. we try to target our training unfortunately, in the winter, and there's a window in the fall before holidays begin. That's the optimum time. Sometimes we don't completely control, and there is callback to the training. Next question about equipment. Has a new budget of $24,482, with $24,482. This is again for the 10% match of an AFG grant for washers and extractors and dryers for the fire department. Please explain the $20,800 increase in maintenance and service. 10 of that, 10,000 is for the upgrade of the fire repair garage software for the computer, the Snap on Tools computer, and $10,000 for the maintenance for Marine One boat. What's the services, what service are paid from the miscellaneous professional services, line 53227? There's an increase from 18,023 to, from 5,022, with zero expended to date. The increase of the $18,125 is to drain, flush, and disposal fees of hazardous foam concentrate from the 8-engine apparatus. With they carry, or they have 40 gallons of foam on board and 5-gallon pails stored at Allen's Avenue for that purpose. Explain the uniform wearing apparel, $725,000 in '23 from $590,000 in '22. There's only been $400,000 spent to date. There's been, because of chain supply, there's been a backlog in the turnout gear order, and so we would like to expend it in this fiscal year. We just can't get the material and the product in. That's why we haven't spent it down. Please provide an update on the rescue revenue, Fund 283. You project the $5.2 million budgeted to be achieved. The answer is yes. And I missed one question, but it's on my, because I was quite surprised. The internal auditor asked why we've had a significant decrease in the salary range. And unfortunately, we lost 30 to 35 firefighters in the last 18 months for varying reasons. We had to separate a few. Fortunately, we had one pass away, I think 2. And through attrition, we lost a larger number thereby. That's been a decrease in the salary line. Chief Dolan, missed anything or want to underscore something?
I think you covered all the questions that were asked.
Chief Kenyon? No? All set. Chief Silver? Did my best.
Retirees, how many are going out eligible, or how many firefighters are eligible for retirement this year?
I'll get you that chart. I don't know it off the top of my head. So we do it by calendar year. So this calendar year, it's 5 or 6, but next calendar year, it's 13 to 15, my recall, but let me get the internal auditor, that projection sheet. But as you know, the colonel talked about, in normal attrition, we're about, the fire department is about the same as the police. Now it changes for varying reasons, but we project between 12 and 15 leaving the job due to retirement. We don't lose that many prior to retirement, and unfortunately we've had a larger number. We had to separate 5 because of COVID, and we've had 33, in the last year and a half. But it's usually between 10 and 15 on the fire side.
So, thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah.
So why did the fire chief's salary increase or exceed 4%? There's no one in that position, right? Is that correct?
That's correct. And so it gets budgeted reflective of certifications that an individual will have in the event and when we do hire fires.
How long has that position been vacant?
3 years, 3.5 years.
We haven't had a fire chief for how
How
many
many?
years?
How many years?
Council, excuse me, Councilman, please answer the question.
3 to 4 years.
3 to 4 years is your answer? Okey dokey. All right. And you testified that you plan on hiring a chief this year?
Yes.
Excuse me, you said yes? You plan, okay,
Yes.
okay, I just didn't hear it, okay. All right. And the assistant chiefs, you don't have any further testimony or any clarifying points on the presentation that was made? Okay. All right. Madam Auditor, do you have any clarifying questions that you might have on the testimony that was provided across the board?
Yes.
Okay.
As far as.
Can we try to work in buckets, so let's
Sure,
do
is that the
Commissioner?
Commissioner's office?
Perfect. Thank you.
So the reason that I asked about the revenue for the tickets is because it's in the non-general fund, and I thought that the committee would like to know how those are doing. Number one. Number two is Conduit is the contract, the vendor. However, this committee denied extending one of their contracts, so I don't know if they're still doing work. They are?
They are still doing work. We entered into a month-to-month. As I know, I've been before you and over your belief, but we have no option. If we stop, then the service stops. We had no option but to go month-to-month, and we continue to do that until we award a new vendor.
Did that letter go to the Board of Contract and Supply for approval?
For the month-to-month,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Does it exceed $5,000?
It does.
It should.
Okay, so let's get that to the Board of Contract and Supply, please.
Crystal or Sarah, do you know how that revenue is doing?
For the fines and forfeitures that come in through the court, it's on track to make budget this year.
And are we increasing it next year? Are we all free now?
We have increased it about 500,000 next year. It's one of those, if you look at the revenue in there now, it's one of those accounts that also has a 60-day revenue.
Mhm.
So I think we will meet or exceed budget this year.
Okay, thank you.
Great. You have a question?
Just to follow
Mr.
up on that,
Treasurer?
if we could get some help on this, the council rejected that increase on the parking tickets. I'm holding checks for Conduit for the mere fact that we need to retroactively go back and recalculate those numbers. Is someone doing that from your department, Commissioner?
We are not.
Okay. Who is going to do that, do you know?
Look, we're in a disagreement. We believe that we entered into a lawful contract to continue on the service month-to-month. This is an
No.
extent.
I get the month-to-month, I'm not objecting to that.
Okay, so
The council rejected that contract, though.
understood.
So you think that, you believe that the council doesn't have the authority to reject the contract?
No, what I'm saying is, at the time, the law department gave guidance. You and this council doesn't believe in, Adrian Southgate was giving us, who was involved in the month-to-month. She drew it up, we entered into month-to-month, and I didn't do it unilaterally. I had city solicitor's office guide.
Okay, but I'm okay with the month-to-month, but the increase of the per check charge, I think, was rejected by both this committee and the council. So someone needs to go back and recalculate it, in my opinion, or I won't issue the check. I mean, I guess if there's a standoff, there's a standoff. But I don't have a problem with month-to-month from the prior contract, but somebody unilaterally increased the amount, which the council rejected. So if someone can just do a calculation as to what it should have been, then we can release all the checks. But if you don't believe that, I guess that's
So,
it's a standoff.
Commissioner, can I just ask you to respond to the treasurer's concerns? I think you expressed that the council didn't approve. So let's ask that you, in your belief, is that you you took direction from the solicitor. There's a disconnect, and the treasurer needs to make that connection before he can issue checks to pay a vendor, which is concerning to me. We want to get the vendor paid, we just need to make sure that we're taking the appropriate action. So I'd like you to prepare a memo to the treasurer with the solicitor and figure out how we move forward with this topic. The vendor needs to get paid, but we're not going to be paying them unless we are paying them appropriately, okay? Is that fair? Does that resolve that? Mr. Treasurer, are you happy with that?
Absolutely, Madam Chair.
Madam Auditor, do you have a concern on that topic, or do you want to move on now? Okay, thank you.
Okay, in the police department, your increase to your clothing allowance.
I'm going to interrupt. Madam Clerk, can you kindly add that to the list of ongoing items that we need to follow up on for this committee? I'm sorry, I interrupted. Please continue.
Are you all doing the bulletproof vest program, or have they stopped that? Where you get reimbursed for all of the cost of the bulletproof vest annually?
I don't
Every
think-
5 years, they replace the cost 100%, as long as you're maintaining it and you submit it. I mean, I did it when I was there. I don't need to throw that in there, but
I
it
don't
was,
believe so, Commander, no.
can you look into getting that money? It's
Sure,
like free
yeah.
money from the DOJ to replace the vest every 5 years.
Well, I will tell you this, the DOJ funding has significantly decreased. Just prior to this budget round on the federal level, they increased it threefold now, so it may be something new, but,
So we've lost money all these years.
yes.
No, that's not accurate.
Commander Birdie, do you have?
The way I understand it, that funding, that reimbursement had ended.
Okay,
Yeah, so it
Okay.
may, like the Colonel said, it may have been reinitiated. That's the way I understand it. But I
Okay.
will gladly verify and get back to you.
all right.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. So you're going to look into that for us. If there's some money that we can grab there, we'd love to be able to. My only question on that, if I can just interject, is it the quality or is it I know that there's a big difference in vests these days.
It's
And
the
we said we
expiration.
told that. So if we get this DOJ money, is it of the caliber that we expect or need or whatever? I don't know.
If it's DOJ money, yes.
Okay.
And the
Fair enough.
concern is the expiration and not.
Fair enough, sir. Continue, please, Madam Auditor.
And maybe this can be directed to Sarah and Crystal, but I know the fire captains are in the union, but that one in the personnel supplement that says Fire Captain EMS was previously filled by Ray Tebold. He had to come out of the union to take that job. It was a non-union position, and they've never filled it since he's left. Am I correct?
You're
It's
not-
been filled?
You're not correct. Yeah, we had somebody in there, Captain Nicky was in there, and then this body raised that, and we moved him back in operation, so he's back on rescue. And we've seen the void in what he was doing, we've had to assign it, as I testified, to light duty, and there's slippage there, so we're coming back and asking for that position. And Tebow was, I don't know if Tebow, he was a chief.
Yeah,
so
he
was
went
outside the
from
union.
regular rescue captain to battalion chief of the EMS after I departed that spot.
Okay. I respectfully disagree, but that's okay. I'll move on. The question about the fallback, how did you come up with the 9.9 million or 9.2 million? How was that determined?
So it's a projection on the number of FTEs in the operations. And as we see it decrease, obviously the fallback increase based on sick use, based on injury, and based on structured benefits like vacation and personal days.
One last question. How often do you replace the turnout gear for the firefighters?
That also has an expiration date of 10 years. So we're on a rotation right now of getting it up to snuff so we don't have to replace every one of them. You know, by year we'll be able to replace it. So we have an inventory that's rolling right now. We're getting up this close to having it all squared away to be able to replace less each year.
And how much is one uniform?
$2,500 for, and that's actually probably a little more expensive now, closer to like $28 for the bunker pants and coat.
And what happens if the ones that need to be replaced expire before you get them in.
Before they get them in, we have some issues. Right now, the supply chain is really holding us back as far as our orders go. We bought it in November, they're still not in. We bought another one, they're still not in. We don't have control of that supply chain right now, so we're hoping that the ones that need to be replaced for we have some loaded gear that we've been able to give out in certain cases like that to cover that, so we're hoping not to run into it too often, but in some chances we're gonna have to.
Thank you, that's all the clarification I needed, thank you.
You good?
Jim.
Okay. I have a question relative to the budget numbers, and it goes back to the towing issue. I actually have a presentation on, you prepared this, Madam Auditor?
Yes, it did.
Okay. So we're going to enter this into the record. I'm going to distribute this for everyone to have a copy of it. And I just, I don't know if that's enough to go down each side. Do you need one? No? There you go. No, that's okay. All right, so we're gonna, I'd like to entertain a motion to identify this on, it's a 10-year presentation of payments made to a towing vendor, to two towing vendors for the city of Providence. I'm gonna call this Exhibit 15. May I have that motion? Councilman
So moved.
Taylor makes that
Second.
motion, seconded by Councilwoman Anthony. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. We have this exhibit entered. I just want to revisit this under testimony on, we spoke about it kind of casually a bit, but it's very concerning to me, and I said we would go back, we would revisit it. Last time this was presented, this matter was presented to us, we could not understand why we didn't go out to bid for this amount of work. We recognize that it's increased, and you testified, the chief testified why it has increased over time. However, it seems like it is a very large number, and it appears to be unfair. And when we realized that this particular work was not bid out, it was concerning for us. And we asked that there be an RFP on that. That was from the Finance Committee when we discussed this towing cost. So what progress have you made on that?
So,
Commissioner, you testified to us.
I did.
You were before us on this topic. So what progress have you made on issuing an RFP as this committee requested?
issued, getting responses back, I think it was extended to June 6th.
Okay, so you have gone out with an RFP?
Yes.
Okay. Can you please provide the council with a copy of that RFP? And you're saying it's extended to June 6th.
Yeah, don't hold me to 6th. It's June 4th or 5th, so first week of June.
I am going to hold you to it, I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know
First week
exactly.
of June,
so-
okay. All righty. So, thank you. Are you all set with that? And did you get one? Thank you.
You need some more?
Need more? Okay, so you're gonna go out with an RFP. How are you gonna control these costs?
You know, we're hoping, first of all, that somebody bids and can provide that service, and then it's specified in the RFP specifically, boats, trailers, RVs, and all of that stuff. And so there's a cost for that removal, and then there's a cost for disposing of the material within. So it'll be really clear what they agreed or will agree in contract for this service.
Can you please provide a copy of that RFP to the council, to
Yeah,
this body?
Sure.
When did it go out?
2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, maybe.
Has anyone responded as of yet?
I think there's one vendor that has responded.
Is that the vendor that you've been doing business with?
I'm not sure because I haven't seen the return.
Okay, So, Madam Auditor, do you have any further questions on that matter?
Not so much questions, but I would like this committee to know that because we do not have a contract, the vendor is currently charging $75 per hour for labor. I understand that the garbage is weighed, and they do take it to the Rhode Island Resource Recovery. I think that this is a waste of money. I think the city needs to do something with DPW. With all due respect to the police department, I don't know why they're in the garbage business. This is not their responsibility, it's just my opinion, but it still needs to be bid out. We cannot go without a contract on this. $75 an hour, that's union work. Those people, the employees, the laborers in DPW, they have done this before. So now you're taking work away from the 1033 members, and you're paying $75, an outrageous amount of money per hour for something that our laborers would do. So that's just my
So
comment.
thank you for your comment, and I know that the treasurer is concerned because you're holding payment to a vendor, and that disturbs me. So I'd just like the treasurer, if you would offer some comment on where we're at, where we need to be, and what we need to do to be able to pay this vendor that
Sure.
earned the money, even though I think that the way that it was handled wasn't the appropriate way.
So, Madam Chair, let me be clear, it has nothing to do with the vendor, it has to do with process, procedure, et cetera. This bid, this was at the Board of Contract and Supply the other day for a payment of $308,951 on a no-bid contract. This is over and above what was already approved for that vendor, for that line item anyway, so for a vendor to be paid. I understand, that we didn't go out to bid, there were mistakes made, but the Commissioner's Office was put on notice in October of 2021 to go out to bid, a request to go out to bid. They did not. So they have gone out recently. It was continued at the Board of Contract and Supply, but and I understand the argument that public safety and all this other stuff, but that doesn't mean you don't go out to bid. That means that you have to go out to bid to do what's required for you to do under state law, et cetera. It's just like me saying, well, I'm required to have a fiscal advisor, but I don't need to go out to bid for it. Of course you do. So bidding is mandatory. It's more than $5,000. Everyone knows that. I've heard, the argument that the pandemic and everything, and I did send an email to the council. Pandemic is a dangerous term in the sense that if we start watching the pandemic and start not following internal controls, then things go wrong. So, and I did, like I mentioned in my email, did go to the Harvard Kennedy School of Government, and they stressed it's more important during the pandemic to follow the procedures. Because if we don't, then things start getting in the gray area. There are a number of there are a number of ordinances that also need to be followed that are not being followed. So for example, if you want to call it an emergency for a short period of time, that's understandable, but there are requirements to do that which is not being followed. So there's just a number of violations here. I don't know how we rectify this unless it comes to the council. It's over budget, so the Board of Contract and Supply, in my opinion, can't approve it. It's never been bid, so they can't approve it. So if it comes to the council, it's simple enough that they then vet it and make a determination on what's the proper amount and if it should be paid or not. So that's just my opinion there.
Thank you. Okay, so I think it's the same thing. We need to get the solicitor to provide an opinion and provide direction for how we move forward to get this thing resolved. All right?
And just one more thing, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I am not holding a check on this. This is being held and has been held by the administration because they know it's wrong.
Okay.
Now there was
Okay.
something.
So, we need to get the vendor paid, folks, and if we need to bring this before the council to take appropriate action, we will do so, all right? I think that solves that one. All right, I don't have any other, are you okay with the budget? Okay. Councilman Taylor?
I just have a question on this one. When was the last time it was bid? Anybody? last time the bid went out for this contract?
I don't think it was ever bid, was what the testimony was.
So,
It was never bid from 2012 on? Or was bid back then? I thought it was bid,
Hold on. Are you finished with your question, Councilman?
yeah, then I have a statement, but go ahead.
Okay, do you have the
so the
answer
12
to
years
that?
that I've been here, it's never been bid. Our fleet manager attempted to bid it early on in my career. Well, I've been here 11 years, 11 and a half years. So in 11 and 12, Vito Antonucci was the fleet manager. He was the person that was managing this. You know, for the record, this doesn't even come on the public safety. This is public property. I never signed a contract.
In your testimony, last time you presented
Right.
this was, it
Right.
was public, it was DPW, under their
Oh,
purview at
no,
one
so
point.
the contract, so it's been under public property.
Public property, I'm sorry.
And DPW stored, DPW took the expense on disposing, as the colonel has spoken, about 80 years past, and now that has changed.
Okay, so clearly we don't have, I'm sorry, would you like to make,
Well, no, I'm just, it's amazing to me that obviously get up to this much money. Two things is that I can't believe he's still doing the work and not got paid. But, I mean, we shouldn't expect anything less because going back a few years, the bidding process for the auto body, and the commissioner brought this up before, you violated the bidding process there by not taking a low bidder. So it's like, every time we turn around, all this is costing money, whether it's the cameras that you signed, to what you call it, and you shouldn't have signed the contract, or now, and I keep repeating the same thing, everybody says, oh, it's personal, it's personal. It's money that we're wasting to the city of Providence. Commissioner, you don't care, you live in Cranston, I live in Providence. So, I'm sick of it, and it's just, we just let it go, and then another thing comes and we let it go. And this isn't our first rodeo. I mean, we lost, for anybody who doesn't know, we lost the auto body case to, the city lost $150,000 that they won because they proved that they should have been a low bidder. And they didn't work on one car. So,
okay, so let's try to resolve this. I think we spoke about how we move forward, and Commissioner, if you can help us get through this, please, so that we can get back on track. All right, anyone else?
I got some couple
Please.
questions on,
Please, Councilman
just on the
Taylor.
police, because you asked to retire. The license plate camera, is that the one, Chief Clement, is that the one that Cranston's using?
Yes.
Are we planning on, I know where you said there were gonna be the hot spots and you talked about dumping and stuff, are we planning on using those in any of the, say, dozen or so dumping areas that DPW know about?
No.
No,
We use
just
it
for crime?
criminal activity.
Okay.
So, if you don't mind me adding on to you, Councilman Taylor, isn't it criminal activity when someone is dumping?
It is, but it's ordinance violations. We're using it for more major criminal activity.
So if you have somebody dumping on camera.
If yes, we can enforce
Do
it,
it for-
but we're
okay.
not going to position them specifically. We have 25 cameras. We could really use 75 cameras. So we're going to deploy the 25 that we're getting for free at no financial impact to the city in crime areas. If we capture illegal dumping on those cameras, yes, we would enforce.
Who is going to identify the actual locations of these cameras?
Major Laney, our analyst, Dan Clement, myself, the command staff, and the vendor.
Okay. Are you going to report out what you get from these cameras? How does that work?
Yes, I would like to report out and do an audit at least every 3 months, and if needed, in shorter time span than that, we'd be available to do that.
How much does a camera cost?
Remember that number? I think it's $2,500 per camera.
77 divided by 25.
Yeah, I forget.
What is it? What did you say, please? What was your testimony?
Well, we're getting the 25 for free for the pilot program, so we're going to bid on the other 60 or 70 we were looking to get. Offhand, I don't know the exact cost of each camera. I want to say it was around $2,500.
Okay. All right. And why wouldn't you put them in places where we have known dumping locations. I just don't
We
understand.
would if we had more. I mean,
Okay.
right now,
So what
for
is
the
the cost of
25,
that, and why wouldn't we just add it to the budget?
we did.
Why don't you add more, because we, we need more cameras on the
So
dumping
if approved,
locations.
we'd
Yeah.
have the 25 for 12 months, and then an additional 65,
And when will you deploy the additional 65?
as soon as it's approved. They can get this up and running, once approved, within a 2 and 3 week period.
Okay. Councilman Anthony, I saw your hand up.
Well, I have a lot of questions.
Oh, okay. Do you want to finish up, Councilman Taylor?
No, I'll
Are you-
defer.
are you
I got
sure?
one, but, no, I'm not for the chief.
Okay, and just to, on the license reading equipment, so that's not, the pilot hasn't started. It will start when the budget is approved so that we can have the total number.
No, the pilot will start before, as soon as the vendor signs the portion of the contract.
Okay, and that will be imminently, I would assume?
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate all your testimony. I was just wondering if you could tell me how many of the officers are on the street, looking at the org chart.
Councilwoman, what do you mean by on the street?
Like our patrol.
Uniform?
How many uniformed, yeah,
It's probably approximately 300 of the 438,
of the 438?
yes,
Okay, thank you.
including
And-
supervisors.
Of course. Okay. And I just was, I know you've done this before, but briefly, when you talk about operational, what is the operational model of the policing? Is it community policing? Is that what your operational model is? Or can you just give a very brief
Yes.
overview of what that is?
So we are a decentralized police department in that we have a district commander that covers each of the 9 districts. And within those districts are a complement of uniformed patrol officers, sergeants, patrol officers. They work hand in glove with those from the investigative side of the shop. And, we're a data-driven organization where we look at data and strategize on that data on a daily basis. So we measure data and we manage the organization based on what our data tells us, and then we deploy our manpower and monetary resources towards the hotspots. As an example, we presently have 4 temporary task force going on. And this is the need for the overtime, in that's just for the regular operational portion of the police department. We have 4 temporary task force going on right now. One is for ATVs, one is for the Southside Detail, one is for the pedestrian bridge, including India Point, very important in the neighborhood, and we're ready to embark on a temporary task force for fireworks. So there's always going to be a need to deploy temporary task force. So basically what we do with this community-oriented policing model is we solve problems in the community. We listen to what the issues are in the community, whether it's ATVs, fireworks, the Southside nightclub detail, or another temporary task force we have going on. It's an old issue that we've really clamped down on and it's been real effective, is the SIP joint activity. So that's an old name for it, but basically it's after hours illegal residential establishments. So what we have in the city is where houses will, they'll have security, they'll have music, they'll have flyers, and they'll have a party on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night with 50 to 100 people, and they sell alcohol, and again, they charge a cover charge. And we've had shootings, we've had a lot of violence surrounding these after-hours locations. We developed a temporary task force to combat the temporary, these after-hours locations. There's probably 7 hotspot locations, some up in your neighborhood, and for the last month and a half, we have completely knocked that back. So finally, in the last 3 weeks, there's been 0 activity at all 7 locations. So as a result of that directed patrols towards that activity, we've pushed it back. So that's what we do. We solve problems by listening to the community, finding out what the issues are in respective neighborhoods and directing resources towards it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, because one of my questions also is going to be about the overtime. So how does that relate to the increase in overtime cost?
So the regular budgetary line item that we put in is just for the basic operations of the police department. But we always need monies and funding for special events, whether it be Federal Hill, all sorts of festivals that we have on nights and weekends throughout the spring, right through the fall, all sorts of special events. But then when we deploy these temporary task forces, that's why we need these overtime monies.
Okay, so
Because that doesn't come from the regular workforce. We have a very low minimum manning number on the police department side, so we have direct manpower, workforce, resources towards these issues requires extra funding.
because it's a 200% increase on the overtime for special events.
Much of that's related to special events in the form of public assemblages, in the form of protests. We certainly had our share of, we had 7 public assemblages, mainly peaceful, 60 of them, and 8 or 10 of them were very contentious, as we know.
Okay, all right, thank you. And I just wanted to go back to, I know we've had a lot of talk about the school zone traffic cameras and the police red light cameras. But I mean, you know, again, I'm looking at the revenue that we're getting, and then half of that is going toward cost. And so I'm just, I mean, it's really incredible. It's just pointed out again in the numbers you have. My specific question is on Cry Wolf, the false police alarm billing revenue. I have to ask, I see the revenue is $3,000, I think. I'm just wondering what is going on with that program. So it's $10 to register, but if you don't register, it's a $100 late fee. So I'm getting so many complaints about that. I just don't understand why we do it. And it's really upsetting to a lot of residents who, you know, miss the billing and then have to pay $100 in a late fee. And who's getting that money?
So the Cry Wolf program was instituted by ordinance because we had a lot of false alarm bells on the police side. So you have a burglar alarm hooked into a system, and our police officers are going and going and going. And so thankful to the council set forth penalties back, you know, even 8 years ago. Our numbers of calls for false alarms continue to be high, and so we went to a more stringent. So I'll answer your direct question. People have to register, they get notice, and when they don't, they get a $100 fine. However, it gets waived if they go and register. And they need to go to register because I get the complaints, and I tell them, go register. We're not trying to make money, but we need to get people's attention to register because that's how we manage the alarm bells across the city. Sorry, go ahead.
I get that, but where is so I'm assuming not everyone goes back and registers and then they pay the $100 fine because some people don't know any different. Where's that money going? It's not coming to us.
Well, it's coming back into the, you know, the revenue. I think I reported, I don't know where it's reported under the police.
Well, I'm looking at the false police alarm billing revenue at $3,000. I'm like, what? That can't be right, that number.
No,
I'm just asking.
Yeah, no, there's more. So we contracted with this company, Cry Wolf, we went to RFP, and we contracted.
So they're
with them.
probably getting the $100 late fees. Okay, just asking. That's just crazy.
Can I just add on to that, if I may, Councilwoman?
Mhm.
I too have gotten a lot of complaints, and they typically come from seniors. I've reached out, my firemen friends and police friends have helped. They're very, it's confusing. They're asked to go on the internet, they're asked to go online, and it's just not working. So if I could ask that whoever is in charge of that program, would that be you, Commissioner? Who manages it? Okay, who manages it?
So it's the police department, a segment of the police department, but, you know, it falls, the revenue comes into under the commissioner's office. So I've been involved because I've gotten complaints, and the impetus was to reduce the number of false alarms.
Has it accomplished that?
It has. Yeah, so currently, I mean.
I'm happy to look into it and monitor what revenue we've gained, and because me as well, I've received a ton of complaints
Yeah.
from residents.
So
and
I
citizens.
understand the reasoning. I served on the ordinance committee for the council when that came through. So I heard the testimony, and I get it. Commissioner, you were right on. You came to us, there were a lot of false complaints. It was at a time when police numbers were so low that taking a policeman off their beat to respond to a false alarm and having them go to the same house over and over again when they're like, oh, here we're going to the same place, we know that there's alarm trips all the time. We felt like we needed to do something, so I get it, and I remember those discussions, but I do think based on the number of complaints we're getting, that to me seems so valid. I mean, time and time again, people are getting, $100 bills for missing a registration for $10.
I agree.
And they're being waived, so it's just this minutia. So without taking up too much time, unless you have something really enlightening to say.
I do.
Before you say that, I would like to say, I'd like Chief to take you up on that offer, to look at the program, look at the numbers, see if it makes sense, or if we can build a better mousetrap that isn't so burdensome for our community members, and particularly the elderly, which to me, my heart breaks when I'm getting these calls from folks that, are just burdened with a $100 bill that keeps appearing. Commissioner, do you have some?
Contract's about to expire, we're going out to rebid that service, so.
Before you do, I'd like to have a report from the police chief on the program, how it's working. I'd like to ask you to hold going out on that until we can figure out if it's the appropriate action. If we need to make changes to the ordinance, we'll do that as well. All right.
We will forward an assessment to this.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Madam Clerk, please put that on our running list.
I'm still
Okay.
I'm still going.
Councilwoman Anthony, please.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I really would love to have how this figure was arrived at on the special events overtime increase.
We can get that to you.
I would really appreciate it. I just need to have an understanding of it, because
What is the number that concerns you?
well, it's a 200% increase. So we went from budget in '22 to the proposed budget of $773,000. It's an increase of $513,077.
We can absolutely.
I would love that, thank you, because I just can't quite figure that out. And then the other question, I guess overall, the increase in the maintenance and service I guess it's mostly, well, I don't know, maintenance and service and repairs to autos and trucks. So significantly. In all departments, it seems. So I was just wondering why that is.
Yeah, so we constantly ask for a master lease, so it essentially ends up being the age of particular cars in the fleet, whether they be unlocked or locked. Our cars go pretty hard, and I know on the fire side, they go pretty hard. They're nonstop, 24/7, 365 days a year. We should, by design, get 25 new vehicles per year, and over the last 10 years, that just simply doesn't happen, so it's
How many
my-
new vehicles are budgeted for this period?
I believe we put in 25 and not positive.
Is that what you need, or do you need more?
Use more, yeah.
Please send me an email and let me know what it is you need. If there's any other equipment needs, I'd like you to direct that email to me as well.
There's a 200% increase in maintenance and service and repairs to autos and trucks. It's a big increase, and I just think that, so you're saying the new purchase of the new vehicles, so it would be through the master lease, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Councilwoman, let me add a clarification point.
Thank
A
you.
portion of that $350,000 increase to repairs on autos and trucks is related to the towing matter we've been discussing.
Oh, okay, thank you, that would help, that helps. That
And
explains
that
it.
maintenance and service line is not specifically for vehicles. A portion of that is also the increase for body-worn camera programming.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's excellent. All right, sorry, I just have a few more questions.
Don't be sorry, that's what we're here for.
Oh, yeah. All right, so I just wanted to, I think I've had my questions answered on the, again, now I'm looking at the fire department. I guess we've already went through the callback. And again, I wanted to ask the question about the 362.5% increase in miscellaneous professional services. You said it was because of the hazardous foam, the 40-gallon trucks that we have?
Yeah, what happens is the AFFF foam that we have presently on our trucks has now been deemed a carcinogen. It's a hazmat.
Oh, okay.
So we're in the process of, we have been moving to replace it to the non-fluoridated foam. It's becoming a hazard to DEM, everything that's going on. So we did a little math on replacing all of our engines, doing it in a three-stage budget season, and replacing from the engines, from our engine 13, which is our foam place. So that's where that big cost is. To get rid of it is a big, huge cost on that.
Now I understand it's the carcinogen issue. Okay, thank you. That's it for that one, and then I just see. I think that is it for my questions. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
What I'd like to ask is, where is the license plate reader cameras budgeted for? What line item is that in?
Maintenance.
It is in maintenance.
5291.
And the total amount that's budgeted for that is how much? Again?
277.
277, is that correct? Is that your testimony?
Yes.
Okay, great. I can't hear you guys, that's, everybody's nodding, but we're trying to get this into testimony. Okay, what I'd like to ask about is the GO team and the other diversion programs that have been added to your charge to complement our police and public safety efforts. Could you tell us what's been done, how we're moving forward? Some of those, you talked about the GO team being grant funded. I know, we worked on getting you dollars to build out those programs, and that the Providence Center is also playing a role. So please talk about what you're doing in relationship to those diversion programs, please.
So on both, we began these programs probably 13 and 15 years ago, and for several years we've looked to increase the complement.
Is it both programs were?
Yeah, one was 13 years ago and one was 15 years ago.
Perfect.
Family Services Rhode Island came first, Providence Center came second, and for many years we've asked for an increased complement of assistance on the clinician side. So in this budget, you see an increase on both sides, both the Family Service Rhode Island and the clinicians. We're looking to divert more calls for service in the form of mental health type calls from the police towards the professional clinician side of the shop, and we're hopeful they can take some of the burden away from the police department.
Okay, so the Providence Center, their funding, as I recall testimony, that it used to be federal funded and the city paid a portion of it. Is that
Yes.
true? And then we tried to fill the gap.
I lobbied hard when there were, it was apparent there was going to be federal monies available through the ARPA for us to include some of that monies towards a great need that we had in buttressing the two clinicians we had to at least double what we had at that point.
So
We were in jeopardy of losing the whole program because we were funding the program ourselves, and the Providence Center relied on the funding from the police department.
And funds came out of ARPA for these diversion programs, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so it's not just getting our general fund.
Yes.
So does anyone as in our finance gurus over here, can anybody give me a number for the total dollars that are being directed toward these diversion programs? Is that possible? I'm gonna have to do it right now, but you can
Yeah, we
follow
can get
along.
that in. Definitely.
Because I know we've dipped into different funding sources, and I think it would behoove us to look at that and know what those numbers are. And I know that the program has been working well, and I know, contrary to common belief, that you had that up and running, much to your credit, Chief, 13 to 15 years ago, so, I mean, that's pretty impressive. Commissioner?
There's $187,000 in opera funding for the Providence Center for this year.
Okay, that's one piece of it, thank
It
you.
is.
All right, okay.
Ask some
We got the
follow-up on that.
Councilwoman?
Yes, so how much is in this budget for the community diversion clinician services, and where is that?
Is that the Providence Center or Commission?
Yes.
So there's 210,000?
Now, you see, it gets confusing. I'm not sure if that's family services.
I think the best way of handling it, just to make it easy on everybody, and make sure we get the right numbers, if you could just follow up to answer Councilwoman Anthony's question on the numbers there and
In
mine
the
as well.
organizations.
Yes, please.
And also, how is it differing, so I'm assuming with these extra funding, the program has evolved in some manner. How has it evolved?
So on the family service Rhode Island side, it's a trauma-informed approach towards youth and families exposed to the trauma of violence in the community in the form of gun violence, domestic violence, all forms of violence. On the Providence Center side, it's in the form of behavioral health issues. So they're oftentimes confused, but they have a distinct role.
And how are they deployed on both? So are they coming through the main number, the 911, and then deployed differently, or what's your?
Yes, for the most part, family services are deployed based on reactive circumstances in the community. So if we were to have a violent incident tonight, even a domestic violence situation, there are normally 1 or 2 clinicians from family services in service for the night, and you'll hear patrol cars who are dispatched to a call for that clinician from family services to assist in the trauma-informed approach.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Taylor?
Yes, back to the fire department. Commissioner, what are we gonna do with Shambo Avenue Station and Humboldt Avenue Station? I know Shambo's not there.
Right.
We're using for Humboldt, I hear there's no heat, we have someone there doing air supply.
That's not under my purview, it's public property, I don't know what the plans are.
Okay, and then also, have we reached out to other departments for lateral transfers? Because I know we've lost quite a few people to other departments, but are we putting something out instead of having a school that if someone's been on Warwick Fire for 25 years, they might want to come to Providence or vice versa, or other departments?
We have not solicited laterals, but we've been discussing it.
Do we plan on doing that before? No, we could hire, say, 10 people if they want to come here without, minimal training.
True, but you gotta make sure who you're laterally transferring into, so.
Well, you would know, you could reach out to the Warwick Fire Chief, the guy that wasn't qualified for Providence, and ask him if he could,
And he
recommend
also-
his guy.
And you also can send us 5 people that have problems there, who was, so. And that's happened, not so much on the fire side, the police side as well, so I know we're tongue-in-cheek here, but we've not done it in our history, as you know, and we've begun discussing it to see if that's an avenue for bringing firefighters in. Decision hasn't been made yet, but I think it's becoming, a reality that we're gonna have to do that and see what we can get from our departments.
And also, when asked about, are we gonna hire a fire chief, he said yes. So I've kind of heard that before. And just to clarify, the last fire chief that we had was Clarence Cunha, who retired in July of 2015. After that was Scott Mello, but he was the operations chief. Another one that put in for the department, I'm gonna do a chief in town, but now he wasn't qualified, but now he's a chief in Central Falls, so.
For the record, he was acting chief here for a period of time, but leaving that
Well, I'm saying you said 3 years, so you're obviously way off.
Stand corrected, I said 3 to 4, time flies, and it's been 15,
Seven.
since 2015, when Clarence was a permanent fire chief, just before the 3 platoon system.
But when you state we're gonna have a fire chief, are you actively recruiting?
I am not actively recruiting.
Okay, so
at
there's
this
nobody
point.
on the department that's qualified, correct? You
There's-
stated that before. You stated several times, there's nobody on the department that is qualified.
At the time, there was nobody on the department qualified.
So we're hiring a new guy that just came on a year ago? I don't understand.
I missed the first part of your question.
Are we hiring a new guy that just came on maybe a year ago? Because everybody's,
No, we're not hiring a new guy that's going to be.
the guy sitting next to you, he's been on the job for 30-some years. The other chiefs have been on 20-some years. You just let a 43-year veteran go, that he wasn't qualified, so I'm just trying to figure out who's qualified now.
So Chief Bates was facing mandatory retirement, so he retired. He had.
Well,
retired in the-
he wasn't,
Let me finish.
he was facing at 63, but if you made him chief, he could have stayed till 67.
Right.
So he wasn't facing mandatory time, and he was in the position he was.
He was in the position he was.
Right. Okay, so,
You know, I've said this before, you can very easily put a fire chief in from outside the department or inside the department. If you don't have the right person with the right qualifications, it's not gonna work out. And I strongly believe that for the sake of, oh, we have a fire chief, but it's not the right person.
well, I'm not gonna make a motion, but I'd like to actually discuss, I think that in the finance committee, we should really think about proposing to remove the salary of the fire chief and place it in a budget article. And should the city hire a fire chief, then we can prorate the amount at that time when we make a fire chief. Because we know we only got about 7 more months with this administration. We've heard it before, we're gonna make a fire chief, I believe 4 years ago, and we haven't made it, and we're going now from 175 to 189,000. And I think we should really look into taking that out, and if they put a, propose it, if they hire a chief, then we put the money back in, but if not, it doesn't make sense to have money in there, because at the end of the year, we don't hear the administration say, hey, we got 170,000 from the fire chief. It's not there, so we don't have a fire chief, we don't have the money, it's been 7 years, over $1 million we spent, we got nothing. So,
We can look at that.
okay, that's it, thank you.
That's it? Okay, I just have one question to all on the commissioner, on and the chiefs that are here. Are you happy with this budget? Does it meet your needs? Does it address the challenges that you foresee next year?
Yes, and we'll work on the vehicle portion of it. We have some other things in play, but yes.
It does. So there's nothing else that you want to ask us for right now that we should be considering in this budget? I know that you're facing many challenges, and I'd like to hear from you what your needs of your department are.
The overtime funding is always an issue on the police side.
Speaking of overtime, there was an article in the paper that appeared that caught my eye, as well as a number of my neighbors, showing the high salaries of a number of police officers, and I think there was a few fire on there. And I spent a lot of time explaining to folks that while it appeared high, it was escalated by the details, and there was a number of significant values for details that were associated or added to their pay. When we have details, that's money that's coming into the city, correct? To pay them directly. It's not an outlay from the general fund. Is that correct?
It's about a $7 to $8 million operation with detail office,
Okay.
revenue from vendors.
All right. Thank you. I just wanted to get that in testimony. Councilman, do you have a question?
Yes, I did want to ask, following up on the cameras, Chief,
Yes.
it was 12 cameras, or 10 cameras for a year free?
25.
25 for free.
Or 12.
And then we have to wait for a year to get the other 65?
No,
We get to 65 right away?
25 cameras for free for 12 months.
Yeah.
And then as soon as we go through the board for another 65 cameras whenever that happens. So we'll probably move forward within a month, 2 months.
It's in this period.
Right, I'd like to follow up with that, either we add 10 more for the dumping areas that we know, you know, that we pay for the, you know what I mean? Because it's,
I think that's a very valid point. We've had this problem. Every council person comes to you and says, help us, this dumping is just out of control. So, I mean, it seems like an easy fix, and I know that cameras have been suggested in particular dumping locations. I think the problem is, there's a disconnect. I mean, the plates often don't belong to the vehicle, so that's a whole nother challenge, and I've met with, I see your hand waving, Gina.
No, she has a question.
No,
Okay.
it's all right.
Let me just finish
Yep, I'll let you
here.
finish. Thank you, Gina.
So I know that that's a challenge. So how does that work? Even if we were to put a camera in a location that was a heavy dumping area, and we see a truck without, you know, and a plate doesn't belong to that truck, what do we do?
So we're constantly looking at technology to create efficiencies, and this is exactly one of those arenas right here. So how does that work? Similar to any investigation, when we identify a vehicle with a plate, we follow up with an investigation, and we can bring someone to justice, whether it's an assault, whether it's a larceny, or whether it's an illegal dumping.
Okay. So I think your Councilman Taylor's thought about expanding that is valid, and I'd like you to look at that.
It's a great value. It really
Okay.
is. And easily, if we got 70, 65 or 75,
You're on you.
we could use 10 for dumping. We could.
Okay.
and one
Councilman Taylor.
last comment, and I'm done, I promise, Chief. I know we talk about cars, and I know like the parking enforcement, they get hand-me-downs, and the roads being broken down and everything, so I don't know if we can put in for cars for them, because once you get to 25 cars and you hand it down, most of them are all beat up that you're handing down. So I think it would be a good time to look into, even if they're electric cars, but it's something
It's
to.
the case in much of the department.
I mean, we did in the fire department, we got all the fire trucks and apparatus because they were done. I know the master lease, but I'd like to look into the police department now because I think you should get more reliable costs. So I don't know if we can jot that down. and
I
look
got it
into
on my list.
Okay.
All right, so are you done with your
I'm done,
thoughts?
thank you.
No, that was good input. Councilman Anthony?
I guess this is a question for our finance department. I mean, what is the, you know, approximate increase in the public safety budget this year? Is it like 11.9 million or?
I don't have that number.
Okay,
I'll
so
but I can get them to you.
I'm just gonna say that when we start asking for more resources, I mean, more cameras and more equipment and things, I think we have to make sure that what's already requested is being used appropriately. I mean, we've got, you know, a pretty substantial increase. And I just think that, you know, to add to that list is given what's going on with revaluations and, you know, what people are paying in their taxes, I think we should be very careful about that.
Okay, thank you. I ask every department what their needs are.
I know, but I'm just saying this particular department, I think I think it's a significant increase this year, and I just think we should be careful about adding to that.
Thank you, Councilman. Is there anything else, Chief, that would help you address the challenges that you have or help your operation run more efficiently?
No.
Any thoughts, concerns? Okay. I'm going to ask the fire department as well. And I'm going to go to the Assistant Chief Dolan because I don't think we've spoken enough today.
So we're pretty happy with the budget as is right now, but I do the same thing as the colonel says. You know, we're blessed to be able to replace 9 or 10 vehicles in our fleet. Our fleet was aging, but we put in an apparatus replacement program because we still have vehicles over 20-something years that are still frontline vehicles out there. So whether it's through the master lease, we really still need to try to keep up with our apparatus replacement program. We have rescues still over 300,000 miles well overused that need to be replaced. And also, even in our rescue division, we've tried over the past few years for grants for our powered stretchers to replace. but because of the age of the stretchers, they don't qualify. But when it comes to use, they're twice the amount of use. So what's gonna end up happening is we're not able to replace them, but they're gonna break down, and we're gonna end up replacing them anyway.
So you have budgeted for the apparatus
We have
replacement program
Yes,
that
we
we,
put it right through the
is that in this
apparatus
budget?
We did get it in, yes, but the apparatus replacement program has always been, we had spoken to finance about sticking with that.
Okay.
The master.
That's important to us, that's
Yeah,
fine.
No, we have.
It's in, okay,
It
because I know,
revisited the master
you know,
lease.
we've had testimony before in finance, and I think that this body, I was a part of it, was adamant in making sure we didn't want our vehicles to age to a point where, you know, we were down too many vehicles. So apparatus replacement, particularly for the fire department, is a critical need. So I want to make sure that we're staying on top of that, and I'm going to ask the auditor if you'll just review that and make sure we're on top of it. Anything else, any other equipment?
No, I would just like I said, the budget was developed with good intentions, but with our rescue division,
Yeah,
we really need to make sure that they get this equipment replaced.
okay.
And we have tried, and just, if we could get anything, it would be to replace the stretchers.
What about there's a piece of equipment, help me, smoke bed training, what is it?
Smoke trailer.
Smoke trailer.
Yeah.
Did we end up getting that?
Oh, we did, that was, yeah, we've been using that, we probably had that out how many times?
Much over the Easter egg hunt weekend, and it's been utilized. It's going to get lettered with fire department slogans and the normal symbols. And
Could you
mascot.
kindly explain how it works, what it is?
So the council, a few budgets ago, we were fortunate enough to get the money allocated for the smoke trailer. We had an antiquated one. This new one is much more technological. It gives the user, the public, and the firefighter teaching these young kids and even adults the proper egress to evacuate a bedroom. There's a bedroom fire, stop, drop, and roll, cover your face, terminology that we're familiar with. Check the door for heat. The door actually has a temperature setting on it. You can actually have the door set at 120 degrees. So when a child or an adult touches the door, it'll actually give you the feedback of heat. Smoke comes out of the floor to illustrate an actual fire. There's an oven in the other part of the trailer that can simulate an oven fire or a stovetop fire, and you can use the proper fire extinguisher utilization to extinguish the fire. It's a really great technological device to use for public education, for juveniles and for adults.
And you're out using it, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm glad we were able to provide that device, but that device, I think, came out, the need came out through testimony and finance committee, that's why I wanted to follow up. Do you have
I was
any?
just going to say that the reason, like I said, over the last few years since we've had COVID, we put the lockdown on it where it sat there until this year we were able to really get some use out of it, and it was well taken with both
Good.
places we took it, so
Great.
it looked great.
Anything else, fire department?
No, I'm
You
good.
good?
Yep.
Thank you for your testimony, and thank you, Derek, for the clarification. Commissioner, what do you need?
I have very little and I need very little, so I don't need anything in my office. I appreciate it. I concur with the comments. People are expensive, and you've funded an academy. We plan on running an academy on the fire side as well, and cars and apparatus are expensive. We get it. We go through them because we use them all. So you've been supportive of those two fronts, so thank you for asking, but there's nothing specific from my office.
Okay, awesome. I think that concludes our testimony today. I'd like to ask for a, excuse me?
Raise your hand.
I'd like to entertain a motion to continue items 1 through 5.
So moved.
Motion made to continue items 1 through 5. Motion made by Councilman Taylor, seconded by Councilman Anthony. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. We've continued 1 through 5 on our budget discussion, and let's adjourn. Motion to adjourn made by Councilman Taylor, seconded by Councilman Anthony. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you very much for your testimony, folks.
for your help. So, it's always excellent.
Yeah, well, they don't-
So-
they don't allow